Hi everyone, this is Betty. I am a backyard gardener. I'm by no means a professional. My dad was a master gardener and I learned a lot from him, but I am still not very professional. So we decided to make some changes in our backyard. As you can see, we have some cinder block raised bed gardens. After gardening the traditional way for years and years, we decided to make a change after my friend Nancy told me about lasagna gardening or layer gardening. We decided to try it. Our backyard used to be part of a farm for years and years. Someone told me it was a barley farm, and someone else told my husband it was an alfalfa farm. But either way, they rototilled, of course, and used commercial fertilizers. And when we moved in, there was very hard dirt here. In fact, it's still very hard. We rototilled every year. We would add leaves and peat moss, but it wasn't enough, and so our dirt is pretty hard. Anyway, so after gardening here for a few years, we noticed that our very back row stunted growth on our plants, and it was killing. Our plants were dying. When we put in cucumbers or zucchini or even some tomato plants, they would start to thrive in the beginning and then they would just die. So we figured out that the soil just needed a lot more than what we were giving it. So this is why we changed to the raised garden beds, so that we can have more control over where our plants are growing and what they're growing in. We have a lot of weeds. Our neighbors, I don't know if you can see, but they have a section in their yard that is weed for all every year, and sometimes they would go out and mow them down, but most of the time they just grow, and the wind blows the seeds into our property, and so we have a constant battle on weeds. We have a real issue with thistle, and it is growing all over in our yard. And so we are trying to get rid of thistle and the other weeds. And then we have some alfalfa here. But anyway, in the garden, the layering garden, what we did was we started out with just the bare soil, and we put the cinder blocks in. And then inside of our garden bed, we put layered newspaper and then some peat moss, and we picked up some manure. I wish we could have gotten cow manure, but we couldn't find any, and I did not want to buy bags of it. So we went to a horse farm and got some horse manure. Here we've got it on top of some cardboard because, again, we have so much thistle that I didn't want a whole lot of thistle growing in my garden beds, more than what we'll probably still get. But anyway, so we put down the layered newspaper, and then we put down peat moss and manure, and after that I put some dirt in, and I strained the dirt because it seems like we have a lot of big rocks. When we first moved here and built our home, been about 22 years ago, the building supervisor had some a couple of dump truck loads of, he said, topsoil. And he said he needed to get rid of it because it was dark and I think they just wanted to get off work. So we said, sure, you can put it in our backyard, because they were working over in a subdivision just through the block here. And so they came and dumped it in our backyard, and we thought we were doing great. And then much to our surprise, it was not topsoil. It was filled with a lot of gravel and rocks, and they may have put a little bit of topsoil on the very top, but after we got down into it, it was a mess. We used to have grass here. We had sod, and it went from where that fence is to about where our bush is. And when we built our chicken coop over there, we have a chicken coop, and we decided to move our garden to a community garden, and this was just weeds. After a section of it was just weeds and part of it was sod grass, and we decided to bring our garden back here to our backyard from the community garden, where we would have more control. In the community garden, they move us to different places every year, and it was really hard to get a patch that was cared for. Sometimes people neglected them, and other people used Roundup, and they would spray it, and it would get into our garden area and would kill some of our plants. And we also had a problem with some people helping themselves to our produce. So I don't mind sharing, but I wish they would ask. So we decided to move it back here to our backyard, and now we're just trying to build up the soil and get the weeds under control and have a more beneficial garden. I garden organically. I do not use Roundup or any herbicides or pesticides. I do use diatomaceous earth, and I just call it DE, a bucket here, and this is food grade. I got a big sack of diatomaceous earth that I will use if I need to. And other than that, everything here grows naturally without any pesticides. Now, I like putting flowers in my garden. I'm learning about companion planting, and I'm trying to implement that. We'll see how it goes. These are cosmos plants. Here's some big ones right here. Cosmos will attract bees, and that's the primary reason why I started putting flowers in my garden, is because I wanted to attract bees to my garden plants. And I bought these right here from a nursery. Last year we had some like this in our garden, and they reseeded, and I dug up the little seedlings and I put them in pots like that one right there, and then I've planted them in the holes of the cinder block, and so they're starting to get big. And I left some spaces here so I can reach my garden bed. When I was first putting in my flowers, I put these too close together. I wasn't thinking, but I didn't want to move them, so I'll just have to reach in between them to get to my garden bed. We are also going to do some raised trellises for our cucumbers to save some room in the garden. This is one cucumber plant, and some more down there, and my husband's going to put some fencing on this cucumber trellis, and we'll show you that later. But anyway, this is going to be a grand experiment, and I'm hoping that it'll do well. I've got more layers. This garden bed right here, I experimented and put, instead of newspaper on the bottom, I put cardboard on the bottom because of the weed problem. And then I changed my mind on the next one that I did, and this one just has newspapers on the bottom. I read that cardboard has some borax and some glues in it to keep it together to make cardboard, and I decided I didn't want that in my garden. So that I want a more natural garden, free of some of those things that come in cardboard. Anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is finish this garden bed right here, and then my son is helping me with the next garden bed. We're going to have one more really long bed, and then we're going to have a shorter one next to our fence. Anyway, that's what I'm doing in the backyard, and hopefully we'll get these weeds under control once I get everything planted, and hopefully we'll have some good produce this year. Anyway, we'll talk to you later.